You are not your diagnosis. You are not your symptoms. You have so much more value in this life.
You. In this three-part series, we're exploring how healing lives in the body. What if your symptoms aren't random? What if they're not just bad luck? And what if your body has been trying to protect you all along? Today, we're here with our friend Courtney Soma talking about chronic
Hi.
illness, plant based nourishment, and nervous system regulation, not from a clinical lens, but from lived experience. Courtney Soma is a board certified health and wellness coach, holistic nutritionist, and personal trainer. After overcoming her own chronic health challenges, she founded Vitality Holistic Health and Wellness. She helps women reduce pain, increase their energy, restore strength, and reclaim vitality through mindset, whole food, plant based nutrition, and lifestyle transformation. Hey, Courtney.
Courtney, welcome. So
Hello,
nice to have
ladies.
you here.
Thank you. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Hi. When you look back at the version of who you were in the thick of your chronic illness, what stands out most to you?
Off the top of my head was the little micro moments throughout the day. Not being able to enjoy time with my kids. And I'm 36. My kids are 5 and 10 right now. Having chronic pain, not being able, I use this example a lot, but not being able to throw a football to my older son
Hmm.
because I'm afraid of having a pain flare, of having daily migraine attacks. And the first thing my husband does when he comes home, he doesn't do it anymore because he doesn't need to, but he would come home and look at my face. We'd make eye contact and he would know what kind of day it was and how I felt. And it was just those moments every day that really built up over time. And I was like, am I going to be stuck like this forever?
Wow. So, when did you notice that the symptom flares correlated with your stress? Did you notice that they were related to stress, raising your kids, over functioning, or emotional stuff going on?
Yeah, for sure. I've always been prone to headaches, but I was diagnosed with migraine after my older son was born. And he's 10 and a half now. So migraine has been a very long journey for me, and I have tried all of the things. When you're trying to get to the bottom of something, you're told that a million different things could be a trigger, and there's really no clear path forward. And obviously, stress is a huge trigger for neurological conditions like migraine. But what people don't realize is there's so much more that we can do that is within our control to help reduce our stress, both mentally and nutritionally, and to increase our energy and take that load off our body so our symptoms resolve. And a lot of us don't realize that because we're not given that information. And we end up feeling helpless to our condition. We really feel like there's no path forward or that medication is our only option. And medication can be supportive, but so many women are told to play Russian roulette with medication. And finally, I said, this isn't working. I'm having side effects. I never wanted this to be on medication long term. I'm done. And not everybody's in that position to just call it quits on their meds. And I'm absolutely not advocating for that. You have to talk to your doctor.
Sure.
This is a very personal decision. But I've seen women that are on 3 to 6 medications for migraine and it's still not working.
I listened to you on another podcast, and what sticks out in my head is you describing this moment in your kitchen where you were trying to push through and your
Yeah.
husband comes home. And I don't remember if you said you kind of like not collapsed, but like you started crying.
There are a few days like that. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. We've got a family of 4. My boys eat a lot and they never want to eat a full meal. So they'll constantly come back, make me a snack. There have been many times where I've been making dinner and I just sat down on the kitchen floor and started crying because I'm in pain, but I have to push,
Ugh.
like, I have to feed my family. Right.
Yeah.
So,
So
Right.
you're on these meds, and at what point did you just say like this isn't working for me? And were you being told, or did you get the sense that you were being told, or it was communicated to you by medical professionals, here, take this and kind of just live with it?
well, I've actually been told just to live with it by a doctor. Um, That's another story. I had to go to the emergency department one day due to pain, and I didn't think that there was much for them to do. I knew it was muscular, but it was stress, and I also wasn't nourishing my body properly at that point in time either, so that plays a role. But I was literally told, "Maybe you just need to learn to live with it," and my husband was furious. As far as medications go, for a long time, I've had over upwards of 50 symptoms, and I've been diagnosed with multiple things, but migraine and IBS were, like, the 2 main things for a very long time. A couple other diagnoses came much later, and everything kind of came together there, and I really developed a sense of like, okay, now I know what this is. Now I can move toward healing, not fixing, but healing and recovering and rebuilding. I was for a while managing with acute medications like Aleve, Excedrin, so on and so forth. And I had to go on preventative medication once I crossed that threshold from episodic migraine to chronic migraine, and you're getting symptoms over 15 days a month. I would have symptoms about 20 to 22 days a month. So, quite a bit of my life was spent either managing symptoms or being afraid that I was going to end up in a flare. I had tried about 4 different migraine medications, and there was a new one, called Emgality, and it's a newer class of migraine medications, but it's supposed to be like the holy grail, works for a ton of people, and it's an injection. So I was injecting myself in the leg once a month with this shot, and I did that for 6 months and it wasn't working. And I gained like 2 pant sizes around my waist in 3 weeks after starting the medication. And after that, after doing that, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm literally injecting myself with this medication. I don't have any idea what's in it. Like, I have to figure something out.
So when does, at that point, the plant-based diet come in, that component of making that change in your life? Is this something you were already researching and kind of thinking about as this stuff is going on?
Yeah, so those 2 timeframes with the injections and the research on plant-based nutrition overlapped. So I did not wanna go plant-based. I had my personal training certification, sports nutrition. I grew up eating protein at every meal. The media is very high in, protein hype. But when you're trying to heal, that's not always what your body needs. And when we focus too much on one thing, we leave a whole lot of other nutrients out. There was a span of about a year that I researched whole food plant based nutrition for migraine. And it started with migraine. It started with a peer reviewed journal article. And I was like, okay, there's science behind this. And also, I've never been told this before. This is interesting, but I need to do more research. And I was very resistant until finally it was around October of a few years ago. And I was like, you know what? Something's got to give. I've tried all these elimination diets, oxalates, histamine, low FODMAP, trying to eliminate one food at a time to see if something's causing a flare. And I was just like, screw it. I'm going all in, and I haven't looked back. Within a few months, migraine was starting to decrease. Within 3 weeks, the dermatitis on my face was gone.
Of the plant of you transitioning and implementing solely a plant-based diet, this is the result that fast.
And it wasn't even perfect. Like, there were some times where I did have processed foods. I'm a sucker for a French fry. Like, my nutrition
Mhm.
is not perfect by any means. And that's not the goal, right? The goal is to support our systems so there's less internal stress and we can begin to restore our bodies and get our lives back.
Right. No, so Courtney, everything in moderation too, because I feel like you have to have a little bit of everything in your diet, especially if you feel like you're having cravings for something, your body's calling for it. With your plant based diet, what was the main plant foods that you
Mhm.
started to see were helping you through your inflammations and your problems and your migraines?
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest with you, when I started, I didn't know. I wasn't, setting out to have certain things. I was still kind of afraid of histamine, which is a huge migraine flare. It triggers the nervous system, and there's multiple mechanisms in which it does this. And a lot of plant foods have high histamine. It was one of those things where the first thing I needed to do was just to stop being afraid of food, because between my gut and my head, I was nervous to eat just about anything. I will say, if you are someone that is completely healthy, moderation can work for you. But if you are trying to heal, it's really being intentional, and moderation means something different to everybody. So when we're healing, it's instead of doing more of like a moderation and having everything, it's like, what are foods that I really enjoy that I can swap with? So, for instance, like chocolate can be a migraine trigger. If I want something that tastes like chocolate, there's something called carob. And that tastes just like chocolate, but there's no caffeine and it's less of a trigger for people with migraines. So you can still enjoy a lot of things, just being a little bit more intentional, but also learning that cravings can mean we're missing something. But a craving for chocolate, for instance, doesn't mean your body needs chocolate. For me, it means my body needs carbohydrate energy. And when I started eating enough carbs, my cravings for chocolate went away. And I ate dark chocolate every single day. I never thought there would be a day that I didn't have to have a little piece of chocolate sometime between dinner and bedtime. And now I don't even think about it because my body's not starving for carbs.
I can see so easily that if somebody's interested in this and wants and needs help, I can see the value of having guidance and a coach because there's so much information. We get inundated with so much stuff. It's hard to know what's right or wrong, like what to do, what to put in our body. One article says one thing, then you see something on social media. It can be overwhelming and confusing.
For sure. And you're right. Even with me, like it takes so long to figure out what is good and what is bad or what we should be doing for our condition. And at the end of the day, we're in a situation where a couple things are happening. Number one, you can prove almost anything in a research study. You can prove on one hand that plant based eating is the best, and on the other hand, it's going to destroy your health. You can do the same thing with keto, paleo, carnivore. You can prove anything you want depending on how you control the variables. Number two, we live in a world where research is done and variables are isolated, which makes sense because, on one hand, you need to know just what that one variable is doing to the outcome, right? But with the human body, nothing works in isolation. Nothing is in a vacuum. Everything is connected from your head to your toes, from your brain to your gut, to your muscles, to your immune system, to the liver. It's all connected. And we don't do research like that. So the approach that I take is really kind of just stripping out the noise. We've got all of this noise. Let's move forward in a way that makes sense. How can we nourish our bodies? And a lot of us know what things are healthy and which things aren't going to serve us. But we've got so much noise and confusion in our head that we feel like we need to have all these things or we're never going to get any better. And then we're either at a standstill or we're bouncing from trying one thing for 2 weeks. And as soon as it doesn't work, we want to see immediate results. And when it doesn't work after 2 weeks, we go into something else. And then 6 months later, we're in the same position thinking that nothing is going to help. And that's not necessarily the case.
Right. And with our dysregulated nervous systems on a regular basis and trying to control that along with your nutrition, I think it depends on where you are on any given day. And everybody has different chemicals in their bodies. What works for one person might not work for another. So it's going to be modified depending on each person's experience.
For sure. And I know you guys have been talking to other guests about the nervous system regulation, and this is huge. And one thing that stood out to me, especially about this episode, you had mentioned it's not just mindset. And I think that mindset is huge. It's actually something that I do teach to my clients inside the Vitality program, but it's also how we nourish our body. The way we eat influences whether or not is our body is internally stressed, whether or not there's inflammation of the nervous system or of the immune system, whether or not the liver is overburdened, and the liver plays an integral role. I've been focusing so much on the liver, but it helps support the nervous system because it's involved in hormone clearance, hormone regulation, hormone production, blood sugar regulation, all of these things that directly impact the nervous system and in many people's symptoms that are related. So if you're dealing with migraine, chronic pain, gut dysfunction, IBS, all these things are working together.
Yes.
And the everyday person, I think, doesn't make that connection. Yes, there's a basic biological and physiological, maybe you remember back to biology in 10th, right? You don't think about how food influences your nervous system.
We are what we eat.
Yeah, and it's so funny because we are what we eat, and an apple a day keeps the doctor away. The Bubbas and grandmothers of the world, they were onto something. They knew what they were talking about. And it's so interesting because humans are the only species on the face of the planet that are confused about what they should be eating. And we've made this whole mess of nutrition. God gave it to us. It's there. We don't need a peer-reviewed, double-blind, random control trial on what to eat, but that's what we've made nutrition. And again, it's just getting down back to the basics. You mentioned the nervous support or nervous system support with the food. And a lot of people that have chronic pain, neurological conditions like migraine and IBS, they have multiple conditions, usually these comorbidities. And it's interesting because you hear a lot about gut health, but the gut actually has its own nervous system. It's called the enteric nervous system. So much of our health is dependent on having a healthy gut because we've got the microbiome. And I know we hear a lot about this stuff, but it really is important because it is so interconnected. And when we don't have great gut health, that spreads throughout the body. It can cause neural inflammation. It can cause the nervous system to be in a heightened stress state just because of what's going through our digestive system.
And I feel too, emotional eating is a big part of it. And so many things are put out on the shelves processed, and people go to what they feel is going to emotionally feed them
Mhm.
during the state that they're in when it's not always good. And then we're busy. So you're just grabbing anything and just put anything in your body because it's easy. And
Mhm.
we're not thinking about it regularly until you have issue in your health. You're
Mhm.
like, well, I have to rethink about what I'm doing here because the medication's not working. So let's start going inside to see what I can do to nourish my body more.
Yeah. For sure. And it's unfortunate, but humans are designed to take the path of least resistance. We are biologically designed to conserve energy, find calories and food and energy in the easiest way possible. And we don't really see a need for a change until all of a sudden we wake up and we're like, I've been living with pain for 10 years.
Mhm.
And it's happening to women, especially at younger and younger ages. There was a study put out a few years ago, too. Children born in 2019 are estimated to spend at least 50% of their lives on at least one prescription medication. So, chronic pain and fatigue, these are not just problems that the elderly have anymore. My pain started over a decade ago. We've got kids that have things like migraine and other neurological conditions that they're dealing with. So, everything's shifting and we're living in pain for longer. You did mention the comfort foods and the foods that are put out that are ultra processed. Back to the path of least resistance. Those foods spike dopamine and serotonin, and food manufacturers know that. So it's not necessarily someone's fault, it's by design, but you do have some control. Maybe it's taking a little bit more intention before you go shopping, sticking to that list instead of straying. Because usually when we're stray, we're like, oh, that sounds yummy. I'm going to pop that in my cart. I don't like the word control because it's got a negative connotation, but we can have better outcomes with just a little bit more intention.
Also, there's some rewiring of your neural pathways. Anything you want to quit, whether it's, quit drinking, quit whatever,
Mhm.
there's got to be some practice, and that will, if you're staying with it, rewire those neural pathways so that eventually those cravings and all that stuff
Mhm.
stops.
How did it make you feel after you started to change your diet and nourish yourself in a different way?
So that's a great question. And the body works at its own pace, right? My main concerns were IBS and migraine, and I did have a lot of joint pain as well. Migraine was the daily thing, and IBS was as well. Like I would eat and then be super bloated, super uncomfortable. There was a point in time where I had bowel movements once every 2 weeks. It's horrible. Super uncomfortable. Then when you add in the whole food nourishment, your body is getting a lot more vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. These calm inflammation. They soothe the nervous system. I felt more confident because my skin was clearing up, and that cleared up fast. It was the first thing that I really noticed, and I was like, oh, damn, good, awesome. After that, the next thing to clear up was the IBS. And I'm very regular now. We've got 3, 4 bowel movements a day. It's happy. There's not really bloating. Everything's good. Like my digestive health went from being non existent to thriving. So I'm a lot more comfortable. You don't feel weighed down. You don't dread putting on a pair of jeans because you're so bloated and your jeans don't fit. And you certainly can't sit down in them or you're going to be freaking miserable. And then things start falling into place with the joint pain that starts fading, and then migraine becomes fewer and attacks become fewer and farther between, and symptoms are less severe. Or instead of needing to take a sumatriptan and literally going from counting my medication each month and knowing that I'm taking the max, which is about 12, to if I feel a little twinge or pressure coming on, like I can pop a couple ginger capsules to lower that inflammation and move on with my day. And it's just life changing.
So you're off medications now
Yeah.
completely.
Yes, I will say a couple times a month, I will take 2 Aleve, which would never hold a candle to a migraine attack previously. I only take them if it starts early in the day and I have something to do. And that's when I will take it. But I try to stay away from that stuff. I usually do try to take a couple ginger first, but when you're nourishing your body properly, it's getting the nutrients that it needs. And so many of us, we focus on protein, carbs, and fat. These are the macronutrients, and these are like the gasoline to your car, right? They're the gas. We have all of these other nutrients. We've got fiber, vitamins, minerals, which the minerals are like the body's spark plugs. We need them. Even hydration, all of these things and the micronutrients, these are like the oil to your car. You could put all the gas in it you want, but if you don't have the right oil or change it regularly and make sure the oil's good and clean, your car is going to break down eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's going to break down.
If you look back at that woman you were before that you described to us earlier in the show, who's pushing through, what would you say to her?
First and foremost, there is a way out because your number one thought when you're in the thick of it is this is going to be the my life for the rest of my life. And how much worse is it going to get? And a lot of women haven't even been introduced to holistic nutrition or anything outside of the conventional space. There is a path out of it. And some people it will take longer. So some women get frustrated that, well, I see someone over here doing X, Y, and Z and she's feeling better. How come I'm not? Stay with it and you will find that path forward and the body will heal. It heals in its own time, but it doesn't want to be in pain. It's literally designed to survive. So pain, symptoms, these are all signals that we've got something going on internally and it just needs some TLC, a little bit of love, a little bit of intention, and it can make it through it.
Then this is a perfect place to ask you, what's one sign that somebody's body could be asking for a different approach?
So everybody is a little bit different. This is kind of where genetics comes in. There's a whole field on epigenetics, and we often are told that, oh, your condition's genetic. It is what it is. You don't have control. But what epigenetics has shown is that only 5 to 10% of all chronic conditions, cancers, autoimmune disease, things like migraine, all these things, only 5 to 10% are solely based on genetics, which means the rest is influenced by our nutrition and our lifestyle. That can do one of two things. It can make you feel really great and empowered, or it can make you feel like you've done something wrong. And this is not to make you feel like you've done something wrong. It's to empower you because you have the power to move forward and make these changes. Symptom expression is influenced by our genetics. So if the body needs support, things that kind of go haywire, if you will, can be influenced by our genetics. So for me, it was migraine, a strong pain signal. For someone else, it might be a skin condition. For someone else, it could be joint pain or gut dysfunction. But any kind of negative symptom, especially one that's chronic, is your body's way of sending out that, SOS flare and saying, I need a little help in here. You know? Can you send a life vest?
And it's all about quality of life, right? And we have one life to live and we want to live it feeling good.
Mhm.
So, if a woman feels overwhelmed by diagnosis, where would she begin? Where would you tell her to begin on her healing journey?
I think the food is the easiest place to start. For me,
Mm.
I I tried all of the things. I've tried going out of state for injections, the medications, the naturopaths, the supplements, and that really never got to what was going on internally to fix the problem. It's all kind of a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, if you will. Even though it can feel daunting and confusing, starting with the food is going to help you make the most progress in the quickest fashion. I don't recommend overhauling everything overnight. Maybe you start with breakfast. Maybe you start with a snack. Maybe it's adding one whole plant food to your dinner, and that's it. Just start somewhere and make it in a way that it's not going to feel overwhelming or scary or flip your world upside down. Because when we do that, we get really nervous, everything tightens, we feel lost, confused, and then we quit. And that gets us nowhere.
Or if you're working with somebody, you have, depending on where they are and their symptoms, a meal plan for them with the certain things that they have that you know that will help them to start them off.
Yeah. So, and it depends on the individual circumstance, but I really do focus on women that have things like migraine, chronic pain, gut dysfunction, and fatigue, because those are all things that I've got lived experience with. And that's very important to me. When I sit across from you, I want you to know that I get it. And I'm not just trained or educated. I can help somebody with reversing diabetes, but I've never lived that experience. So I want to help you with things that I can really resonate with you on. And depending on what you have going on, both physically and in your life, we might start on one step instead of another. You know what I mean? So for someone that's got a lot of overwhelm around food, we might just start with hydration. For someone that really wants to dive into it, we might make a few changes. Some people we need to add before we remove anything, and then we slowly swap and replace. So it's really going to be specific based on not only your symptoms, but your level of readiness and your lifestyle, because everything has to click together if progress is going to be made.
Absolutely. And if you can coach somebody through this, you can read up on anything and try to do it yourself. But I always say when you have somebody on your side helping guide you through this, you're not alone. No man's an island. And that continued support from somebody is going to help you get to a great result. And you relate to these women too. You've been through it. And that to me, when you've experienced these things that these women are going through that have these, that means more than anything, just having that related support.
Absolutely, because like we said before, there's so much noise out there. And I've even hired my own coach because we have questions, we need guidance. And that doesn't mean that your coach is going to be 100% right 100% of the time. But what it means is you've got someone to fall back on and can give you the support to work through it and give you structure that can help you become more confident, because sometimes we can look at something, we can read it and A, not implement it, or B, implement it and feel like we're flailing. And that's not fun either. So really having someone in your corner that knows what you've been through and knows how to support you and how to move you forward is invaluable.
I honestly also feel like it's going to help people to obtain quicker results because it's going to keep you on track and hold you accountable and all that great stuff that we say about coaches. Think of all the times as a person that you realized something needed to change and you started and stopped. With a coach, it's going to get you in the direction you need to be and you're going to see those results.
Absolutely. And we're social creatures, right? And having someone in your corner that gets it and can support you, it may just be exactly what you need to move forward. Because oftentimes, even if it's not health related, it could be relationships, it could be work. When we're faced with a challenge or something we need to overcome, it can feel isolating and we feel like nobody else understands, but there are so many of us out there that get it. But also shortening that time frame, a lot of people, and women in particular, we're more prone to things like autoimmune disease, migraine, gut dysfunction. We've got these hormone issues and we have been dealing with them for a very long time. Part of my goal is to help women cut down on how much time they have to spend managing their symptoms, managing their condition, because who wants to waste 2 or 3 more years being miserable, being in pain, losing time with your kids, canceling plans with friends? So if you can expedite that process by getting the support you need, now the body's still going to heal in its own time, but when you can do what you can to move yourself along a little bit more quickly, you get more of your life back.
The quicker that you get the help, the quicker that you acknowledge it, the quicker you're going to be able to have a healthy, purposeful life and do the things that you want to do and feel good doing.
We do like to end and leave these episodes providing hope to people. So if a
Mhm.
woman feels stuck in whatever her symptoms are, whatever she's going through at this moment, and maybe starting to lose hope or feels like they've completely lost hope, what would you say to her, to that woman?
You are not your diagnosis. You are not your symptoms. You have so much more value in this life. Sometimes we can feel like people pity us because maybe they're always asking you how you are. And like it just makes you feel some type of way. That doesn't define you and it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. Even if you haven't found answers yet, I can promise you there are changes that you can make that are not only life changing, but simple and sustainable. And that's what it's all about. How can I make nourishing my body and my mind and aligning my lifestyle in a simple, sustainable way so I can live a life of health and happiness and fulfillment that I'm designed for, that I deserve?
Yeah, and well said. Tell us about some of your current offers that are available now to empower women to transform holistically.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am running a challenge that's in March. I do run a one-on-one group hybrid, the Vitality 6-month comprehensive health and healing program. And this is a container that's only for women that are struggling with some of the things that we talked about during this episode. And you really get that one-on-one support you need, but also that group community. And we walk through and we talk not only about mindset and stress, but also nutrition and lifestyle, because all of these things work together to shape our health. And we do this together. It can feel isolating and like you're alone when you're working through these problems. But when you have a community that supports you, and is also going through some of the same pain or struggles or challenges, but also wins, making progress. It really helps us to stay grounded and focused on not where we were, but where we're going.
Or
I feel like this conversation and this talk today and all the work that you do is really going to help people. And it's conversations like this that remind us that healing isn't about fixing ourselves. It's about listening to what our bodies is telling us more. If this conversation resonated with you guys, we invite you to download our free identity reset guide, because when the body begins to feel safe, the next chapter of your life becomes possible. You can find a link in the show notes below. Courtney, thanks for sharing everything, today, all of your wisdom. And I'd like for people to know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So on all the major social platforms at Vitality Holistic HW. My personal Facebook profile is at Courtney Soma. If any of this resonated with you, or you're really kind of wondering how you can make those next steps nutritionally, I actually have a free guide that you can download. It's my Liver Love Guide. And there's also a recipe book of about 40 recipes for you that are simple, nourishing, and a lot of the things that I work with my clients on nutritionally is focused on liver support, because this directly impacts our nervous system as well. It impacts our nervous system, our immune system, our guts, our digestion. So this is kind of the cornerstone. So if you're thinking, I don't really know where to start or what can support my nervous system, this is a great place for you to start. And you can download that for free at vitalityholistichw.com/liverlove.
Awesome. That sounds like a great way for people to get started, especially with the 40 recipes. I'm going to definitely have to check that out. So until next time, remember that healing begins when we start listening to ourselves.